Hello, everyone. This is Rachel Gustafson, your presenter tonight. We've got a couple of minutes before we get started, but I'm going to start going through some tech stuff here in a moment. Thanks for joining me tonight, and we'll get started shortly. Okay, while we are sorry about that. I was muted. Hi, everyone. I'm going to get started on a couple of tech issues that we want to work through, and then we'll dig right in. I know I've got to still have a few people that are going to be joining us. You are going to see when you first log in one of these two diagrams. The first one might be this long drop down, which is what I want you to see. Yours is going to look a little bit different than mine. The second diagram that you might see is this little guy here with a little orange arrow. If you see the little guy, please click the little orange arrow, and that's going to drop down the box that I want you to see. Now, if you are on your phone, this might look different. You might not see this. It's a little bit more reduced in your capabilities on your phone. So if you see this, great. This is where I want you to go. And I'm gonna jump into some of your options here. Let me grab my highlighter. All right, so the first place that I want you to pay attention to is the handouts. There are 3 handouts. The first is the Excel spreadsheet that I am going to share with you and do a little demo on later on in the presentation tonight. This is something for you to come away with that you can actually start tracking your budget on. The other handout is our bios. So that's going to be the bio of the 3 financial planners in our office, just a little bit about who we are. And then the third handout is going to be our fiduciary pledge, talking a little bit about what that is, what that means to us. So those are your 3 handouts that you can take a moment to download. If you're on your phone and for whatever reason you can't access these, you can send me an email at rachel@fi-team.com and I can get those sent out to you following the call. The other place that I want you to focus on is the chat box, and you just click the little arrow to the left there to drop it down. This is where you can ask us questions as I go along. You can also let us know if you're having any technology issues. You can't hear me, you can't see what I'm showing you for whatever reason. This is where you'll want to let us know. Those are the 2 main spots that we're going to focus on in the drop down. Use those for any questions. I'm going to reserve time at the end of the webinar tonight to answer any questions that you do have. I want to be respectful of everyone's time, so I'm going to try and get us done right at 7 o'clock. So I'm going to give just another couple of seconds and then we'll get started. Okay, it looks like we're not having any tech issues, so that is great. We're going to get started. My name is Rachel Gustafson. I mentioned that before. I'm a financial planner at Financial Investment Team. We are a woman-owned, woman-run firm, and our focus is holistic financial planning as well as financial education. So normally we hold these in-person seminars at our, you probably hear my kiddo in the background, just FYI, I am working from home, getting used to this. But normally we do these in-person as seminars where we're teaching you something about a financial topic where we're trying to help you make more informed decisions. And because of social distancing and everything that we have going on, we are working from home. And so we wanted to make sure that we could still present some of the information and share it in a way that will reach you while you are probably working from home as well or staying at home. So webinars seem to be the best way to do that. And that's what we're doing today. This is just a little bit of information about who I am. Okay, types of budgets. So before I jump into some of this, we're going to actually have a little poll question that I'm going to pull out here. And we're all here for a different reason, right? We want to build a budget, start a budget. Maybe we have been laid off, we have taken a pay cut. There's a variety of reasons. We're worried about the future of our finances, and we know that budgeting is a great way to get started. So this first question that I'm going to send out to you is, why do you want to budget? So go ahead and take a moment to answer those questions. Looks like a large majority of you are saving for a financial goal, building an emergency reserve. Some of you are paying down debt. Great, okay. Looks like 47% of you are saving for a financial goal, 40% of you are building an emergency reserve, which we'll talk about, and 13% are paying down debt. Fantastic. All great reasons to start a budget. So when I think about choosing a budget, I think about choosing a diet plan. No one likes to be on a diet. Often it will take us trying a few different ones to find out what works for us and our bodies. That's very similar to what a budget is. You may have to try a couple of different ones before you find the right one for you, which is one of the reasons that I'm going to be sharing 3 different types of budgets tonight, so that you can learn a little bit about some of the options that you have and choose the one that works best for you. You might have to try a couple different ones before you find the right one for you, and that's okay, and that's normal. I'm just going to give you the tools tonight to try and choose which one will be best for you. We're going to talk about what is your baseline. This is your essentials. This is your needs. And we'll talk about how to define that and what those are. We're going to identify what your wants are. This is your discretionary expenses. We're going to talk about intentional savings. We're going to talk about how to start creating your budget and the steps to follow. The first budget that we're going to talk about tonight is the zero-sum budget. It essentially forces you to spend every dollar you make, just not in the way that you might think. The basic premise of this is the budgeting strategy gives each dollar a job. So to prevent waste and maximize your income with the ultimate goal of reaching zero at the end of each month. If you cover all of your expenses during the month, and for example, you have $500 left over, you aren't done with your budget yet. You have to tell that $500 where to go. If you don't, you lose the chance to make it work for you in the areas of getting out of debt, saving for an emergency, investing, paying off your house, so on and so forth. So you essentially need to take every dollar and you need to tell it where it's going to go, with the goal at the end that you have a zero balance. We'll talk a little bit more about what that looks like. That's kind of the idea around a zero-sum budget. The second type of budget that we're going to talk about is the 50-30-20 budget. This is a proportional budgeting plan. You divide your monthly income into different categories. Based on the percentage, you use your monthly net income. That's your take-home pay after taxes, so that's what's put into your bank account, to calculate the percentages. So if we used an example of $3,000, for example, $1,500, which is 50%, is going to go to your needs. 30% is going to go to your wants, which is going to be about $900. $600 will go to savings, which is 20%. So we're going to look at your money in terms of a proportional percentage basis. And for some people, your needs is going to be more than 50% or less than 50%. So let's say you look at your pay and you say, 60% of my pay is going towards my needs. Well, then you're going to adjust the percentages for wants versus debt and savings based on that. But it all starts with, you have to pay for your needs. These are the things that keep the lights on, put food on the table. The third type of budget is the cash budget, aka envelope budgeting. You may have heard about this. It's pretty popular, but it's really, really great for people who at the end of the month say to themselves, I don't know where all my money went. I have income coming in, but I don't know where it went. It's gone. This is a really great place to start. It helps you monitor your spending activity, and the whole idea is to track how you're spending money and where you're spending it. So you're going to, again, take your net income, which is the income after taxes. You're going to subtract your essential expenses, your needs, and your savings or debt repayment plan, depending on what it is that you're working on. This is going to give you your cash allowance each month. And so the cash allowance, this is your fun money. So you're going to take your fun money and you're going to put it into envelopes, or you can use one debit or credit card that will track these things. So I'm going to start with if you go with the envelopes. So let's just say you've got $300, that's your fun money, you're going to put it in your envelope. You can have multiple envelopes, so you could have one for going out to the movies, you could have one for going shopping, doing your nails, doing your hair, going golfing, whatever it may be. So you can give your envelopes little goals. But the idea is that you're going to put the money into the envelopes and you're going to track them, okay? The other thing that you can do is use a debit or credit card. And so I'm hoping that everyone is seeing the cash budget, aka envelope budgeting. I had a couple of questions on that, so that's the slide that we should be. So what you're going to do is use one credit or debit card to track your cash, your fun cash allowance spending. And the important thing here is you don't want to go over your fun budget, which can be the temptation if you're using a debit or credit card, is, oh, well, my limit is 500, but my cash allowance is technically 300. So you really want to stay in the range of what your cash allowance is, and you have to be very diligent about going in and tracking it on a credit card. It's just a little bit harder to do as opposed to having an envelope where you can write the balance at the top, and each time you pull money out, you can be subtracting what you're using it for. So the idea behind this is once you run out of that fun money, no fun. And so if you went out for a fun weekend with friends and you used all of your fun money, well, the rest of the month is spent trying to eat at home, and trying to limit expenses as much as possible, watching Netflix as opposed to going out to movies. so on and so forth. But the idea is to have a goal around what you're spending for fun. Okay, so those were the three main budgets, right? So what I'm going to do right now is do a quick fun little poll around which budget you connected with. There are three different types of budgets. Maybe you budget in a different way and that's completely fine, but just for fun tonight, which budget did you like the best, the one that you want to try potentially? I'm gonna give everyone just a minute. It looks like about half of us like the 50, 30, 20 budget. I like this budget too because it's really, it gives you exact proportions, right? It's great for those of us who are analytical minded as well as just want to know what the percentages are. So great. And then about 35% of us like the zero sum budget and 15% like the cash budget. Let me tell you, no one loves the cash budget. It is the most strenuous to follow, but it is the one that's going to give you the best outlook on exactly where am I spending money. It's usually the one that I recommend to start out with, but again, you've got to choose the right one for you. So once you've chosen the budget, we've talked about, you know, which budget do we want to use and that it's important to choose one. Well, now we have to talk about how are we going to track our budget, right? So there are many budgeting tools out there and very popular, Mint online. I love Mint. It's better for people who have already been budgeting for a little while. It's not as detail oriented as I would like it to be because I want to see exactly where my spending patterns are, not necessarily how much is being deposited versus being taken out of certain accounts. So it can work really, really great if you've been budgeting for a little while. Some apps that you can look at, EveryDollar or You Need a Budget. Now, these apps currently, the last time I checked, they were new and they were free. So great apps to look at if you like to just be a quick person that jumps into an app and tracks things. My personal favorite is an Excel spreadsheet. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, oh, Excel, either I'm not great at Excel or that sounds like a lot of work. I'm going to jump into a demonstration of the Excel spreadsheet that I shared with you via handouts. And it looks complicated at first, but once you've done it a couple of times, it makes a lot of sense and it really digs into tracking, which is what I'm passionate about. So give it a chance. After you see the demonstration, I think that you'll see that it can be a great tool. The other way that you can track, I had mentioned before, was the envelope budgeting or even printing off a worksheet where you're tracking pencil and paper. I still know that there are a lot of people out there that prefer pencil and paper, and that's just how their minds work, and that's completely fine. We all learn in different ways. The whole idea here is to choose a way that you are tracking once you have chosen the budget you're going to follow. Okay. What is your baseline? Essential needs. So this is an example of the most common needs that I see across the board. I'm going to go through each one, and I'm also going to share some tips on potentially reducing. You know, we are in unprecedented times. I'm sure you've all heard this and feel it and have been affected by it. Maybe you have been laid off, maybe you know someone who has been laid off or taken a budget or taken a pay cut, or just seeing what we are going through as a nation, as a community, and globally, you want some peace of mind, right? And so building a budget is what's going to give you that. So I'm going to talk about what are your essential needs, how we define them as financial planners, and potentially where could you cut expenses. So we're going to start with rent and mortgage. Now this tends to be something that's not going to change, right? We have our set mortgage, we have our set rent. One place that you can look at here, I know that it has been talked about a lot, is potentially deferring mortgage payments. This is the last place that I look. It's very new. A lot of lenders are offering it, but they don't necessarily know exactly how it's going to affect your credit. A lot of times, if you're deferring, for example, for 2 months, at the end of that 2 months, your 2 months payment is due. So really important that if this is a route that you're going to look at, that you're fully informed and that you understand how it's going to affect you. Talk to your financial planner or advisor. At the very least, talk to your lender and make sure that you understand how it's going to affect you. Electricity, this is pretty stagnant. You know, it is what it is. Some things that can help here, keeping the lights off in rooms that you're not in, just kind of the generals there, right? And same for gas at your home. If you have gas, just trying to limit as much as possible the electricity and gas that you're using. The cell phone, this is an interesting one because I do know that a lot of carriers are offering reduced packages. So if you're in a situation where you are really having a hard time making ends meet and paying your bills, give your cell phone provider a call and ask if there is a way to reduce possibly your data package. Do they have a more simple phone package that you could do for a limited time or permanently if you wanted to? But I do know that a lot of cell phone companies are offering reduced packages. Same thing with internet and cable. Maybe you have the full HBO, Showtime, top-notch cable, but during a time like this, when we're trying to reduce expenses, that's a place where you can reduce. So I encourage you to give them a call and see, can we get a reduced package at this time, you know, when we're limited in our income. I include it in essential needs. It doesn't have to be, but I include it because a lot of us are working from home and we need internet. And so it may be something where it's not essential for you, but it could be essential for the other person. So really it depends on you and your situation on if internet and cable should be essential versus discretionary. Groceries. So this is important to track. This is where people get themselves into trouble. I encourage my clients to look at their household and to give a goal for each person in the household. A common one would be $100 per person per household. And so if you have 4 people in your household, that's $400 a month. So you're trying to spend $100 a week. That doesn't sound like much, but the idea is to give yourself a goal that you're working towards. Yes, you might go over it a little bit, but try and stick to a goal. If you're the type of person that goes to the grocery store every day, your grocery expenses are going to be a lot higher usually than the person that goes once a week and covers their expenses for the week. So track your grocery expenses and see how much you're spending truly. I usually will have clients go through this and they say, oh, I'm spending about $500, and then they realize they're spending $800. And so the only way to truly see that is to track it. If you're doing envelope budgeting, have one of them be your groceries. Car payment, again, it is what it is, right? The only way to truly reduce this would be if you're going to refinance your car, if that made sense. Auto expenses, these are things like gas, car wash, oil change. And here, I think for a lot of us, the gas has probably reduced, right? Because we're not driving anywhere, we're working from home, or at least one of us may be. So hopefully that has automatically reduced a little bit for you guys. Auto insurance, this is a fantastic one to look at and make sure you're getting the best rate. And I recommend working with an auto insurance broker as opposed to just going to Allstate or just going to Geico, because they're going to give you their rates, but they're not going to shop around for you. There are auto insurance brokers who will shop around for you based on your needs and try and get you the best rates. And so if you haven't had your auto insurance reviewed within the last year, I would absolutely recommend that, because you could potentially reduce payments here. Health insurance, this I only added here if you're paying for health insurance out of your own pocket. So if you were laid off and you're paying for COBRA, or for whatever reason you're paying health insurance premiums out of your own pocket, most of us pay for this out of our paychecks, and so we don't see it. But the only reason you would have this on your budget is if it's coming out of your pocket after income is coming in. Student loans. So I've read a few articles on student loans. I know that they are deferring interest for student loans if they're federal student loans. If you have PLUS loans, personal loans, this may not apply to you, so you really have to check with your carrier. But potentially you're not going to have that interest that's accruing right now. And you can check in with your provider. You may be able to defer payment. So if you're in a situation where you've been temporarily laid off, or you've taken a pay cut and you really need to reduce some of your expenses, you could potentially look at deferring student loans. Credit cards, I only add to the budget if you're not the person that is paying off your credit cards every month. If you're the person that has a couple $1,000s that you're trying to pay down, then you want to include this on your budget so that you are consistently moving towards paying it down. And we'll talk a little bit more about this soon. Personal loans, if you have any personal loans that you're paying towards. So these are the most common essential needs that I see. You may have others that you are paying as well, but these are just the most common and some ideas where you might be able to reduce potentially, especially right now. Okay. Oh, sorry. All right, so wants versus needs. So we talked about your essential needs. Those are the things that you've got to pay to keep the lights on, put food on the table. Now we're going to talk about our wants, right? So these are things, and again, these are the most common that I see. It's things like personal care, could be massage, nails, golfing, kind of the things that you do for yourself. Miscellaneous could be things like traveling, paying for nice clothes, electronics, if you give your kids an allowance, entertainment, eating out, takeout, going to the movies, if you have a gym membership, subscriptions like Hulu, Netflix, Amazon Prime. I often get the, well, but those are kind of essential. And I'm like, well, if you're looking for places to reduce, you're not going to reduce your mortgage payment, right? You've got to make your mortgage payment. Not going to reduce necessarily the electricity unless you've been really good about keeping the lights off. But these are places that you can reduce and you're going to be okay. You're still going to be eating, you're still going to be paying your rent. And so it's really important to categorize these in different ways, essential versus non-essential, wants versus needs. This will make a little more sense when I get into building the actual budget. Okay, let's see here. There we go. Okay, savings. So I'm going to do another poll here really quickly on how many of you have an established savings account. So take a second just to answer that. Looks like a majority of us have a savings account. Fantastic. My question should have been how many of you are using your savings account, but we'll get into that. The fact that you have one is important. I cannot stress automating your savings plan enough, okay? Think of your paycheck. Your health insurance comes out of it automatically. Your retirement, if you're contributing to a retirement plan, that comes out of it automatically. You don't even think about it. You just see your pay coming in. This is how you should think about your savings plan. It should happen automatically. You shouldn't have to think about it. It should just happen, right? And so for your savings plan, which we'll talk a little bit more about, what are you saving for? The first place is your emergency savings. And generally speaking, my rule of thumb is have 3 months of your essential expenses in a savings account. Now, if you're a single person and you're paying your own bills on your own, I usually will say 6 months of expenses. With everything that we're going through right now, definitely on the 6 months of expenses if you can. But situations that we're in, like right now, where potentially we've been laid off, we're taking a pay cut, so on and so forth, this is where your emergency savings kicks in. This is where it helps you get through these hard times, right? And so it's really, really important that if you haven't built that, you have a plan for building it. And if you have already built it, then you can focus on saving for things like that next goal that you're trying to save towards. Maybe it's buying a house. Maybe it's going on a really extravagant travel trip. So it could be different for all of us, but the important piece is that we have a plan around savings. All right, so we've talked about the types of budgets. Hopefully you've picked one that you like and you've chosen a way that you want to track. The next step is creating your budget. So there's a couple of things that I want to share before we jump into a demo. The first is if you're on a variable income. So maybe you're a realtor, a contractor, 1099, whatever it may be, but your income is variable. You can't depend on it. So what you're going to do, you're going to look at the previous year. So you would look at 2019 and you're going to average the 3 lowest earning months. Not the months that were at 0, but you're going to look at the lowest earning months that you had. And you're going to average it. You're going to have that income go into a separate account to pay yourself on the low end. And so usually what I recommend is you'll have, for example, a business account or a separate checking where all of your income streams into, and then you pay yourself from that account into your bills account, where you budget from. So I just like to point this out in case we have anyone on the call that does have variable income. Really important. A great way to look at it, average the 3 lowest earning months. And the whole idea behind it is to build a holding account for at least 2 months, if not more, of high-end average pay, because you may have those months where you don't have any income coming in. And so this is what's going to get you through those months. All right, so what we're going to do now is jump into my budget worksheet. Okay, so hopefully everyone can see this. This is my budget worksheet Excel spreadsheet that you're going to get in the handouts. If you didn't, just make sure you email me and I'll email it to you. But down at the bottom are the main tabs. And so I'm going to go left to right. So there's the summary tab, and I'll explain this in just a moment. There's the monthly income. This is where you're going to input your income. And then there's monthly expenses, and this is where we're going to build a template of your expenses. In green, these are what we call your essential or needs. And in red, this is going to be your miscellaneous. And I encourage you to edit this however it makes sense for you and the budget that you're building. This is just a template, and I'll run through an example here in a moment. And then we have the tracking template. And I'm going to go into more detail here. We have the months of the year at the bottom. So the whole idea here is that you can flip between January, February, March, and you can really start to track patterns. So we're going to go through just an example. I'm going to pretend that I'm putting in my budget. So we're going to start on the monthly expenses tab. And you can input due dates for when your mortgage is due or your rent is due. If you have it on auto pay, you can input that here too. You can be as detailed as you want. You can be as simple as you want. So what I'm going to do right now is give you something super simple. So let's just say my rent or mortgage is $1,300, electricity, gas. And the first time you do this, it's really going to be an average of what you think. What's going to be interesting is tracking what you think versus what actually happens. But I think my electricity and my gas bill is $56, let's just say, and my water and my garbage is $65. You may be in a place where you pay garbage quarterly or every 2 months. That's fine, but for your monthly budget, you're going to put in the monthly amount. Your cell phone bill, maybe it's $65. We'll go in and say cable is 54. I'm just going to throw in some numbers here. 400 for my groceries, my car payment is 350, so on and so forth. You get the idea here. So you put in the amounts. And we'll just say miscellaneous is 400 for fun. And then you're going to go over to your monthly income tab, and you're going to put in your income. I encourage you to put your name, especially if you're in a joint household. It helps track that. If you have multiple places that you have income coming in, it'll help you track that as well. So I'm going to say $3,000 is my monthly income. If you had supplemental, you can include that too. And so the next place you're going to go is your summary down at the bottom, this blue tab. And the summary, the whole idea behind this is it's going to tell you what your total monthly income is. And it's going to tell you what your monthly expenses are based on what you've input and what your surplus should be. So my surplus is $310. And if you remember, in my monthly expenses, I had already put in my fund money here. Miscellaneous would be where my fund money goes. So this $310 should be what I am putting towards my savings and my debt reduction if I'm working on a debt reduction plan. And so what you'll do is you'll go back to your monthly expenses and you'll see I have included here in the green a goal and an emergency reserve. So for example, you could say, you know, I have, let's go back. So we've got 310. I want to put 150 every month towards my emergency reserve. And I want to pay off credit cards of $160, we'll just say. So that should bring you to zero. So what the summary is supposed to tell you is what should my surplus be and what should I be moving towards savings or my debt reduction plan. And from there, based on the budget that you chose, if it's a percentage, if it's a certain amount that you want to, then the zero sum budget, this works great for that. But you're essentially taking that surplus and you're telling it where to go. And you can tweak it however works best for you. But the idea is to have your money working for you, right? So what we do once we've done this, we have an idea. And the first time you do this, I'm going to be really honest, most people have a pretty high surplus. And once they've been tracking it, they realize, oh, maybe the first time, maybe I wasn't exactly accurate on how much I was spending. So it can be really enlightening. But what you're going to do is you're going to take your expenses and you're going to copy them. Control C is what I use. You're going to go to your tracking template and you're going to paste them. and Control V for that one. The other nice thing that you'll have when I send this to you is the tracking instructions are over here on the right-hand side. And it actually walks you through the steps. So I'm walking you through them verbally, but you'll have this again where you can walk through it on your own. And if any questions come up, let me know. Following the call, I'm gonna offer that you can come in and we can, or virtually, we can talk about your budget and we can actually walk through this together. This is just an example. So we have input the budgeted amounts that I had said were about where we were at. And where you're gonna go with this is when it comes to budgeting, you really have to build it into a routine for it to be successful for you. And so usually what I'll recommend is start off tracking it daily. And if you've been budgeting for a while, maybe you're just going to do it weekly, or maybe the daily is too much for you, and that's fine too, but create a routine around it. And so let's just say you're doing it weekly, build it into a routine. Maybe it's Sundays after church, maybe it's Saturdays while your kids are napping, maybe it's Friday nights after you've had a glass of wine. However you want to build it in, that is truly up to you, but have it be part of a routine, because routines are what we do consistently. They become habitual, and that's what we want a budget to be. And so let's just say Friday night's your night. After a glass of wine, we're going to talk about our budget. Really exciting. I know you guys are really excited about this. As you can tell, I get excited about it too. All right, so it's Friday night. It's the first week of the month. I'm going to go in and I'm going to look at what I spent the week before. So oftentimes our mortgage or rent is due on the 1st or the 5th. So let's just say I paid my mortgage. That's really not going to change much. My electricity and gas, let's say they came right on the dot. Fantastic. I did a great job budgeting there. Water and garbage, let's just say for whatever reason, it came in at 70. I was using a lot of water. So now you can see it turns red. And so you can tell right off the bat, I under budgeted for this category. Cell phone, I called my carrier, got a really great deal. And so I'm only paying $45, so I've got a $20 surplus. So you're gonna go in each week and you're just gonna fill in where you paid for that week. And let's say groceries, your goal was $100 for the week and you spent 110, we'll just say, you'll put that in there. And each week that you go in, you'll add on to the groceries. So the idea is that you're tracking, you're popping in every week. If you decide to do it daily, fantastic. You choose how this works for you. Again, back to the diet thing, right? Every person has a different body style. We all have a different way of budgeting. There's not one right way to do it. You've got to find the right way for you. Now over here, you may have noticed we have a miscellaneous spending tracker. This is almost like an envelope budget, but on an Excel spreadsheet. So you could say to yourself, my fund money for the month is $300, and I'm going to get really nitty-gritty about it. That's $10 a day, essentially, if you have 30 days in a month. You're going to put in $10 a day. That's my goal. So you're going to actually come in here daily, and you're going to put in what you spent it on. I went to Starbucks today. I spent $5. And you're actually going to put in that you spent what you spent it on. Because the whole idea, again, is patterns, right? Where are we spending our money? And miscellaneous spending is really where we get ourselves into trouble because we don't realize it. If we're just throwing it onto a debit card or a credit card and we're really not paying attention to what we're spending it on, it can add up really, really fast. $5 at Starbucks every day is going to add up fast. So you'll go in daily and you'll put in how much you spent. And this is just on miscellaneous. This isn't on your essentials. This is, going to the convenience store and getting a Gatorade. This is going to Starbucks and getting that Frappuccino. This is the fun stuff that we're spending our money on. And when you actually put in, what am I spending it on and how much am I spending, you will quickly see exactly where your money is going. So this can be a really fantastic tool, whether you use this on the Excel spreadsheet or an envelope where you're doing the same thing. You're starting at the top, you've got $300 on your envelope, and every time you pull money out, you're subtracting it, kind of like the old school balancing your checkbook. I think maybe a lot of us have forgotten about that, but there was a reason we did it. And there's also a reason financial institutions don't want us to do it. So that's a good thing to go back to. So you can do it on an envelope. You can do it on this spending tracker here. However you do it, doesn't matter, just that you are tracking. And so what you would actually do once you have this built, I'm going to delete this out because what we want is a blank slate. So we want this to all be blank. And we're going to go up to this left-hand corner here where this little triangle is, and we're going to actually copy the whole thing. Control-C, right-click copy, however you want to do it. And we're going to go to the month that we're working on. So we're about to start April, or we are in April. Can't believe it. This is April. Time is flying. We're going to paste it into April, and we're going to call it April. And this is where we're going to go into for the next 30 days. Is we're going to pop into our April budget and we're going to track here. Okay. And you can do this for personal. You can do one of these for business, however you want to do it. But the idea is that you're tracking. And what I like about this is you're tracking very detailed. And so you're going to see immediately where your spending is going. So just a brief breakdown on the Excel worksheet. I've had clients who will take this and use it in Google Sheets, and it seems to work really, really well. So you just decide what works best for you. I'm not saying that you have to use this, but I wanted to give you a tool that you could potentially use going forward. And this one has worked really, really well for my clients and myself even. So hopefully this has been helpful, but that's the basics of the Excel spreadsheet that I will get out to you guys. So I'm going to go back to our, give me just a second here. There we go. All right. So we talked about creating your budget, and I'm checking questions. I don't think we have any at this moment. So I'll move to the next. All right. So your first step is building a budget, right? Deciding what budget is going to work best for you and tracking. And the tracking element is really what's going to help eliminate extra spending, help you decide where can I reduce spending, call, I had mentioned before, call your carriers and see what options you have and do the best that you can. Following this call, I'm offering a complimentary budget planning consultation to each of you. So part of my role as a financial planner is really being an accountability partner for my clients. So it's, okay, we've built a budget, you've been tracking it for a month or 2 months or 3 months or however long we've decided. Let's touch base and see how it's going, because I think that the easiest piece for us is we know what we need to do. It's kind of like a diet, right? We know we need to eat our vegetables and eat our proteins and stay away from the carbs. And if we have an accountability partner, it makes it much more, I don't want to say efficient, but it encourages us to move forward and to do it, right? And so a lot of what I do with my clients is I'm an accountability partner. I walk through the budget, we talk about what the best budget is for them, and then we set a date in the future to revisit and see how it's going. So if you're interested in that, that is something that I'm offering to everyone on the call. Having scheduled check-ins to see how your budget is going, providing guidance as needed. Tracking is really the most important piece of your budget. If you're not tracking your spending, you can't identify patterns. That's what we're looking for. Can't make changes if you don't see the patterns. And you don't want to procrastinate, right? Human nature can quickly allow us to postpone, make excuses, and I encourage you not to let that be you. Believe in you. You can do this. It's, you know, when I say budget, I sometimes have to use other terminology when it comes to these things. Financial de-stressor, financial tracking, you call it what you need to, but just know that this will help give you peace of mind, especially right now with what we're going through as a community and as a nation and globally. We are facing unprecedented times. We are seeing things that we've never seen before. Having a budget and knowing exactly what we can afford and knowing where our money is going can really give you that peace of mind. Believe in you. I want to thank you all for attending. I'm going to take some time for questions. If anyone has them, you can type them out in the chat box. If you don't, you're getting about 10 minutes back to you. But when you do leave tonight, there's going to be a survey. And please fill it out. It's really, really helpful for us. We are launching webinars and trying to every week on topics that we hope are pertinent, are helpful to you all. So if there is something that you wanted to see tonight or something more that you would like to see in the future, please let us know. If you're interested in doing a budget planning session with me or just have questions about your own financial situation, I am here for you. Next week, I'm going to be hosting a webinar on rollover options. This is especially pertinent for people who have left jobs or have been laid off and they have that 401k sitting there and they aren't sure exactly what they should do with it. Should they be tapping into it? Should they not be tapping into it? And so we're going to talk about the 6 options that you have and what you can do going forward with those. So with that being said, I'm looking at questions. I'm not seeing any. So if you do have questions, please let me know. And you can also email me as well. But I want to thank you all for taking your time tonight. And if you weren't on the call, you'll get a recorded session following the call. Have a fantastic night, and thank you for being here.